I run the Lion's Guard helm with the crit strike, crit avoidance. I don't block enough that my stamina is under 75%, like, ever. So I've always got the 5k up. Got the power reinforcement kits all the way down the left side. If I do run overloads, I run the black ice, but you don't really need to, it's not super important. Also have all tacticals and all my utilities. I run the Ibhendis breastplate for the little bit of power boost you get. I don't actually try to build that up, it's too much of a divinity sink, but I count anything extra I get as sort of just a bonus. I got a brutal there in defense, it's just about balancing stats, and bark shield is good for Tom. It just kind of absorbs some of those bigger hits. Lion's Guard arms, that's an amazing bonus. You're always hitting stuff as a pally, so you're going to be building that up continuously. It stays on outside of combat as well, so it's just really nice to have. Lionheart is easily vested in slot. You can use Burnish though if you can't get your Lionhearts just yet. I run all Radiance and Offense for the power, and that's the Vorpal for the crit severity. Oh, I run Cure Wounds as the artifact modification, but I don't think that really matters. It's not going to impact gameplay. Cure Wounds is not a really good heal on its own. Here we've got crit severity and power. You definitely want to run those. The Infernal Boots are great because you're in Tom. You've got like you're in combat the entire time, so you're going to be building up that power boost the whole time. And I went with crit strike, crit avoid for obvious reasons. Those are our useful stats. I went for the Infernal Pants because of the slight increase to stats, and that's a decent amount of defense and crit avoidance to work with, so it worked out well for me. I don't think that bonus, though, is all that great. I've got the Infernal Shirt for the crit strike. The accuracy isn't doing me any favors, but the crit strike is fine. That action point gain, I don't notice it, but I'm sure it's helping somewhere. I run a broken set. I don't really think any of the set bonuses are that useful. I like the stats on this for the crit strike. The awareness is sort of useless, but I like the wisdom. I've got the savage in defense too there, kind of just helping me balance my stats out. The striking rings are easily vested in slot with that huge chunk of crit strike you get. I've got the stamina regen kits on all of my right side. They're not going to make a huge difference. They're not going to really impact your gameplay, so if you don't want to put those on, you're going to be fine. Up here, we've got the Woven Vine again, still a broken set. Tacticals. I go with the journals for the extra HP boost. There's a lot of times where I'm in Tom and people get lost and maybe don't show up where they're supposed to be for hypothermia. A little bit of extra HP helps me survive those kind of situations. The Flayed and the Frozen for the extra 3k HP, and the Envenom for the little bit extra defense. Of course, we all want to run the Halaster's Blast Scepter if we can. It's got the most useful stats, but being support, I do have the other ones and can easily switch to them. It won't impact any of my caps. Stats, we've got 366k HP. That's just standing, no buffs. Here you go with Dex for the crit severity mostly. The movement's just a nice little bonus. Wisdom for the outgoing healing. There's my standing power. Like I said, absolutely no buffs on it. Defense, just barely capped. My crit. Crit avoidance is almost capped. I couldn't quite get it there. But if I'm ever that low on divinity, something else is probably terribly wrong. You just shouldn't be that low. Incoming healing is only 27% because I'm being cheap and I don't want to upgrade my tacticals, but that's still plenty enough. Outgoing healing, and then there's my standing crit severity. Let's run over here to mounts. We'll look at the stable. There's really no reason to have 2 Shepherd's Devotions. I just haven't fixed it. I should probably be running 2 Berserker's Rage or another Gladiators. Berserker's Rage isn't really necessary. I just figure why not use something that's actually benefiting me sometimes. It's just whatever you can throw together that gets your dominance and brutalities in there. I've got 142 down here to cap out my defense. The Shepherd's Devotion is pretty handy if you pop your daily before Cloud to Ground. It gives your team a little bit of a run speed boost. Can help them get where they need to be. I've got the Rex on currently, but the Swarm, the Bullet, the Griffin, they're all useful. Dominant Force is going to be your best bet for heals. So 10k power, 5k power, whatever, just some amount of power. Sometimes though I'm in a terrible situation and I go for the 50k HP just because it'll help me survive. Sometimes we're just either doing challenges or maybe the team is really learning and I'm having to solo hypothermias. It can help with that. Just hopefully that doesn't happen to everybody. We'll go over here to companion slotted. Outgoing healing, everything as much as you can. There's no third outgoing healing comp for the defense slot, so there I just run something useful. In this case, it's crit avoidance. There's also the alluring, or the Ion Stone of Allure, the Red Dragon Ion Stone, the Slime, the Broom. All of those are pretty useful. There might be some others, but those are the ones I think are useful for that slot. I've got the Quickling, but you don't need to have the Quickling. You can also go with the Rebel Mercenary. I just have the Quickling with the Crit Strike as the off stat, so of course I'm going to use that. Equipment, I don't really like to do me's, we's, and p's. So I've still got the blue piece. If I had the defensive slot, it would give me a little more wiggle room on some of my other stuff. I could probably min-max a little better. As it stands now, though, this works pretty well for me. I've got the two 12k crit pieces. Of course, bonding's 15. And the crit severity enhancement. Summon, this is a Star of Cymril. I'm running it because of the crit avoidance and power. The awareness is pretty useless. Over here to Boons, we'll go to Guild. I used the crit severity boon. You could use the power boon if you don't have the crit severity boon, but crit severity is going to be better. Crit avoidance and revive sickness. If you don't have revive sickness, it's not a huge deal. You'll be fine without it. Just try not to die. For campaign boons, I always go all the way up for power and HP. And then after that, I will dump into companion influence, and then the movement speed, and whatever's left over after that, I kind of play around with. And of course, I've put it into crit avoidance here. We'll go up here for crit severity and outgoing healing. And then over here for Blessed Resilience. I think that works really well. It's nice for tanks, it's nice for people with the Lionheart weapons. Blessed Advantage is an option. I just think Blessed Resilience is much better. We'll go over here to powers. Valor Strike has the quickest cast time, so it's going to be your best bet for hitting something and proccing critical touch as often as you can. Cure Wounds is great when you don't have a target. You can use that to proc critical touch as well, but it does cost a little bit of divinity, so, you know. It'll also proc Prayer of Opportunity, though, which can offset the cost. I personally prefer Sacred Weapon for my passive divinity gain. Circle of Divinity, though, is another really good option. It's just not really my playstyle to stand still that much. Divine Touch is going to be your main heal. That's what you're trying to proc critical touch for. Divine Shelter is a great Hail Mary. Anytime you're having to spread out and your team's not nearby, you can use that to try to hit them all with at least a little bit of a shield. It's got a slightly higher magnitude, so its smaller shield is going to be larger than a Divine Touch's smaller shield. I use this here and there. It's a huge divinity sink, though, so you don't want to overuse it. Also, at the end of ToMM, during Sunfall, or right before Sunfall, I guess, I switched to Circle of Divinity and swap out Divine Shelter. There's no reason the DPS should be out of range during Sunfall, and that little bit of extra outgoing healing can really help. I use Lay on Hands, not often, but once in a while. Sometimes the tank takes a little more damage than I think is reasonable, and I can't heal them up quick enough, so I'll just toss a Lay on Hands at them. For the most part, though, Shield of Faith is my favorite. It helps the whole group. That little bit of damage resistance, it procs Shepherd's Devotion, they get the run speed. The extra incoming healing is nice. It's just overall very useful daily. Composure is probably the most useful out of the rest of these that are left over here. For your class features, Aura of Restoration is a must-have. There's nothing better than 5% extra incoming healing. That's amazing. Down here we've got Critical Touch. You're going to definitely need that. That's the cornerstone of your build, as well as Emissary of Warding. Those are musts. If you don't do that, you're just not going to have the shields that you're expected to have. Prayer of Opportunity is your best tool for regaining your divinity. Just Those will stack up. I think they stack to about 5, and you just, anytime you're low, hit them and consume them. They're just a quick tap your channel divinity and they'll be eaten. I prefer Enduring Spirit here. I don't use Spite or Bane during most runs, so Enduring Spirit works out a lot better for me, and it makes the Sacred Weapon give me the passive divinity gain. Divine Intervention. You want to use this even if you don't plan to use Lay on Hands. This is a terrible option. Anytime you would use Shield of Faith, it would consume those shields, and you wouldn't look like you were doing your job at all. And that extra little shield you get here is just nice if you do have to use it. I think that's about it. Lion's Guard Helm. For the crit strike crit avoidance, my stamina is always over 75%, so I've got that 5k power all the time. Again, all the power kits on all the equipment down the left-hand side. Still same thing with the Black Ice Overloads. They're the only ones I really like to run if I run any. I run the Infernal Breastplate on this one, so I get the extra defense to cap my defense for IC. Bark Shield again, although I don't know how great it works in there. It's just what I have. You could probably run a Shadowclad, and it would turn out pretty well too. Radiant in defense. Lion's Guard gloves for the same reason, the whole you're always hitting something, so you're going to have that up. It stays up out of combat as well. And I don't get hit a whole lot, so I've got that buff up most of the time. Tacticals and utilities. Lionheart weapon, best in slot. Could use Burnished if you don't have Lionheart. Vorpal for the crit severity, increases the shield size. Radiance and offense. Here we've got Cure Wounds. Still crit severity power. The Infernal Boots, their power buff is going to be up the whole time you're in a boss fight, which is when it's really going to matter most, even though you're going to be dropping combat throughout AoE. It's still super useful and you don't want to be switching your gear all the time. Sometimes I do like to switch to the run speed boots. You could also probably run the Mighty Storm Slippers if you wanted to. Move over here. The Infernal Pants for the defense crit avoidance. Not so much crit avoidance in IC though. Crit strike here with the AP gain. Running a broken set. I really don't see much of a point in running any of the set bonuses aside from Tiamat. Well, it doesn't show up on your stat sheet. It does work. And it can be worth it if you want to build around the stat drop. I don't see a point in it. I don't see enough gains that I want to put the effort in. The Savage in defense here is just from the Tom build to limit how much I have to switch my enchants around. The 19k crit strike is going to be your best in slot with the 2 offensive slots for the striking rings. And then that again, broken set. I run the 2 journals for the HP boost, but it's not nearly as important in IC. You shouldn't really be taking enough damage at any given time that you need excessive amounts of HP. I'm running the Trobrian's Ring to kind of help cap my defense, and it's got the extra power, which is of course lovely. Again, with the Blast Scepter, love to run it if I can, but if I can't, I've got the other ones available. You can switch to it and I'll still have all the stat caps. Over here, 362 HP. Dex. Wisdom. This one for the crit sev. This one for the outgoing healing. Standing power. The defense gets capped when I'm in a group, and I get the bonus from the chest piece. Crit strike. You don't need your critical avoidance in IC. You're not in any sort of hypothermia type situations where it's imperative that you don't get a crit. Or you don't take crit damage, I suppose. Rephrase that. There's my crit severity, the outgoing healing. Run over here to mounts. Here we got the Shepherd's Devotion, 2 Berserker's Rage. These aren't actually important. I just use them because I put dominance in them, and the extra crit here and there can't hurt. Shepherd's Devotion is nice. It's not super necessary. I mean, you don't really have to run it, but the extra run speed, nice little boost here and there. Gladiator's Guile is wonderful. Highly recommend it. Always run at least 2. I've got the Rex on. That's great AoE here. Like Bat Swarm would probably be the only other one that's useful. There's no real need for a Bullet or a Griffin in IC. Dominant Force is going to be your best bet. You want the power. Companion bonuses, again, we go with everything outgoing healing. 10% all down the board. Don't have to use the clickling. Again, it could be the Rebel Mercenary. I've got Alluring Insight in at the moment for the incoming healing and the power. But you could go defense. You could go incoming healing HP. Crit severity, crit avoidance. Any of those would be good if you need the stats. We'll go over here to equipment. And I see not needing to build the crit avoidance leaves me free to run 3 of the 12k crit pieces with all empowereds in them. The rank 15 bonding stones. Down here it's the crit severity as well. And then the baby bullet I'm running for the power and the defense. Combat advantage is neither here nor there. It doesn't help your healing at all. Boons. Got res sickness on. You don't really need that, but if you have it, you should use it. Running the defense. And crit severity. You could also run power if you don't have the crit severity. For the campaign boons, we've got power and HP all the way across. And then as always, I will dump into, oh goodness, making me scroll a bunch. Companion influence and run speed. And then what I've got left to play with, I capped out my defense here. That'll bring it all the way up when I've got the bonus. And then the leftovers I put into crit strike, crit severity, outgoing healing, blessed resilience to help keep the buff up on the Lionheart weapons. Stamina is always nice. Powers I run for IC. I like Secret Weapon. I like to be able to move while I'm getting my passive divinity gain. Circle of Divinity is still a valid option if you're able to stand still enough. It's well worth switching to when you think you're going to need a little extra healing. That extra 15% is pretty nice. I think it's 15%. Yeah. Divine Touch, you definitely need that. Divine Shelter, I use it a little bit, but not a whole lot while I'm in there. Most of the time people should be grouped up. A really strong option is Banishment. It's absolutely fabulous. You can lock down almost every group of mobs in there if you need to. It's a little more difficult when you've got groups that are chaotic and they're running far apart. That's where I keep Divine Shelter on. Otherwise, I love running Banishment. If the group is particularly fast and doing well, I'll also swap out Sacred Weapon for Burning Light, just to keep as much CC effects on the mobs as they can, so that they're not, doing anything to the DPS. Just makes it easier for them to take care of them. We've still got Valor Strikes for the low cast time and the quick procs on crit touch. Cure Wounds for the no target crit touches. And then if you don't feel like you're going to be able to get close enough to a boss to be able to use Valor Strike, you can use Divine Fulmination. I'm not a big fan of that at will, but it is useful sometimes. Shield of Faith is something I use here and there. Definitely good AoE if you've got the Shepherd's Devotion on. Lay on Hands, I actually find myself using a decent amount in IC for the tanks when they just don't block enough and something happens and they're down a little low. I really like to keep my tanks at full health. Once they die, everybody starts dying. It's no good. No good. Composure for the added divinity gain. There's not really a better option. Or a restoration for the 5% incoming healing. That is amazing. Critical Touch and Emissary of Warding. Those are the cornerstones of who you are as a pally healer. Divine Intervention for that extra shield from Lay on Hands. Prayer of Opportunity. That lets you stack up your divinity gains and then just tap your channel divinity to eat them and boost yourself up a little bit. I mean, if you want to go a little more DPS, you could use Spirit of Austerity and then do the Smite Bane thing. I don't really recommend it. Like I said, I still prefer Sacred Weapon. And I think that about covers it.